Well, violence in Canada's largest city is at an all-time high after a fatal shooting over the weekend marked Toronto's 90th homicide of 2018. That passes the city's previous grim record of 89 homicides. That was back in 1991. Joining us now is CTV's public safety analyst, Chris Lewis, to help break down these numbers. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Let's talk about this. Our own mayor, Toronto Mayor, John Tory, he actually released a statement about this. And he said, quote, we are working well with the Ontario government to give our police more support and toughen up bail practices. We're working well with the government of Canada to toughen up our gun laws and to invest in kids and families. I mean, from your perspective, this is your world. You understand it very, very well. Should people be worried? And what exactly is going on behind these numbers?
Well, let me preface what I'm about to say, Melissa, by saying that no amount of murder is acceptable. One murder is unacceptable for families, for the public, for everyone that's walking the streets. But 90 murders is scary, and I totally get that. Yeah. But comparatively to cities that we would go to for a weekend like West Palm Beach, Florida, our murders are infinitesimal. They measure them by murders per 100,000 people. Okay. In a place like West Palm Beach, the murder rate is like 9 times what it is in Toronto. And so would we go to West Palm Beach tomorrow? Would we go to Miami where the murder rate's like 20 times that? Yes, we would. So Toronto, it's awful. People sometimes think, oh, you don't care about murders? Of course we do. But Toronto is a safe city. Most of the murders are gang-related. Very few aren't. The odd domestic murder, the odd person got caught very innocently in something they shouldn't have been involved in. That's all awful, but most of the murders are gang-related. So Toronto police are good at what they do, and they're focusing on gangs. And the province has jumped in, and the feds have jumped in. It's not going to solve the problem right away, but it doesn't mean that you or I can't walk down the street tonight and have supper and have to live in fear.
Okay, so let's break that down now further, because you're saying this is, the police are working at this, they're really good at what they do, and yet gang-related violence is very, very, very complex.
It is.
So what are the challenges, not just that police are facing? I mean, listen, they're there at the end of the line. They're there when everything else is broken down and gangs are shooting at each other in the streets. But what are the challenges specifically that the community is facing to try to tackle specifically that kind of violence?
And the community is the key word in there, and there's community mobilization issues that have come to Canada from Europe that cities, including Toronto, are all dealing with, and involving educators, involving social service agencies and others who see and hear things that can help prevent some of these things from rising as high as they do, especially with kids. Toronto police used to have cops in the schools. They don't anymore. That got taken away. There was an opportunity to build relationships with kids before they enter the gang lifestyle and try and discouraging them from entering into destructive lifestyles, whether it's the use of drugs or gang activities. And then the other big issue is guns. We live next to a country with a huge unprotected border, largely, that has more guns than people, hardly any gun laws, and that's where the majority of the guns are coming from. So if we can discourage kids from getting involved with gangs at a young age, try and limit the number of illegal guns out there, and the feds and the province and Toronto and Peel and everybody are working towards that, there's going to be some mitigation happen there, but it's still not going to end the fact that there's going to be murders in big cities.
So
but people need to know that they can still walk the streets because the streets are still safe, other than those occasional things that do occur.
The context matters.
The context matters. That's right.
And lastly, you mentioned guns, and there have been 90 homicides so far this year. We are sadly only in mid-November.
Right.
47 of those homicides were gun-related deaths.
And that's a stat in itself, I believe. Yes, guns are a big problem. But once again, where are they coming from? They're coming largely from the United States. Legal gun owners in Canada aren't going out and shooting gangbangers in the entertainment district in Toronto. That's not happening. It's illegal guns in the hands of people that shouldn't be allowed to have guns. So dealing with that tide and trying to stem that, it's an ongoing issue. It never ends. 30 guns seized here, another 35 seized somewhere else, all coming from the United States. That needs to be dealt with, and they're trying their best to deal with it. But it takes time, and but at the same time, it's never going to end at all. And what's really important, too, of those 90 murders, 10 of them were in the Yonge Street van attack.
That's right.
And that's a big chunk. How many of them were related to MacArthur and the awful killings that were going on there in the gay community? So it's all awful, but it's not you and I walking across the street tonight and having to live in fear. That's not the case.
Well, thank you so much for bringing us that perspective.
Anytime.
Yeah,
my
we
pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.